take. If you missed the Democrat National Convention this week, which nominated Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, don't you worry. I'm going to take a few minutes to sum it up for you. Now, I could talk to you today about Bernie Sanders, a socialist who praised Fidel Castro and honeymooned in the Soviet Union, taking a victory lap about moving the Democratic Party to the far left. Or I could talk about Bill Clinton, who could never get nominated today by his own party because he believed in wild ideas like work requirements for welfare and enforcing immigration laws. We, of course, could spend time on Barack Obama's revisionist history that ignored his lies about Obamacare, wage stagnation, record numbers on food stamps, hundreds of thousands more minority families living below the poverty line, and a deadly opioid crisis that he all but ignored for years. Not to mention his proven efforts to shred the U.S. Constitution by weaponizing government against businesses, political opponents, conservative nonprofits, and religious institutions. What I really want to focus on are two consistent points virtually every speaker hammered home this week. America is a fundamentally racist country, and Joe Biden is a nice guy. We were told over and over this week that Joe Biden's a nice guy. He is empathetic and he's decent, and he has a lot of friends on both sides of the aisle. He has a relatable and powerful personal story. I've worked in Washington. I know people who knew Joe Biden. He's been around a long time. I don't doubt many of those qualities. But by focusing on the nice guy Joe message, we were, by extension, told, never mind his 45 years in Washington as part of the swamp. Never mind about policy and what he believes in. Never mind questions about self-dealing and cover-ups. Never mind his flip-flops on virtually every issue. Never mind the 110-page unity agenda written by Bernie Sanders. Democrats and the Republicans who abandoned their party, who appeared at the convention, say none of those things are important because Donald Trump is a racist, a bully, and a killer. Now that brings me to my next point. Nearly every speaker at the convention drove the dark, divisive, and false narrative that this country is suffering from an epidemic of systemic racism. Michelle Obama kicked off this cavalcade of condescension. Watch.
Now, I understand that my message won't be heard by some people. We live in a nation that is deeply divided, and I am a Black woman speaking at the Democratic Convention.
And in that moment, she suggested that anyone who disagrees with her likely does so because of her race and her gender. And it got worse from there as speaker after speaker lectured America and Americans on its racism. It was insulting and disgusting. The leadership of the Democratic Party spent the entire week telling people that Trump voters are racists and either intentionally ignorant or deliberately indifferent to the plight of communities of color and to the real challenges that we face as a nation. Now, they do this to scare independents, to make them feel guilty about voting for a Republican. They call it white guilt. They do this because for the sake of increasing their control over government and virtually every aspect of our lives, they are willing to willfully deny the hard-fought progress that we have all made together over the last century in creating that more perfect union. And they articulate it with such passion and feeling. Despite Democrats being the party that is running our crime-ridden cities into the ground, that has ignored the epidemic of black homicides for years, the fact that they lead states that are in the worst financial shape, that they're the party of abortion that has killed 20 million black children. They're in the pocket of the teachers' unions that prevent school choice and other reforms to provide better outcomes to minorities. They support forcing your daughter or granddaughter to compete against a biological boy in team sports. They support taking more of your hard-earned money to give some faceless, feckless government agency your hard-earned resources, separating us from our stories, from our individuality, from our humanity, our patriotism, from our history, from our basic goodness, for the sake of defining people by race and gender, telling you that our progress means nothing, that you are to blame for our failings because, like Donald Trump, you harbor disgraceful, sinful thoughts against women and people of color. It is deliberately deceptive and shamelessly divisive, and it's un-American. Joe Biden may have been a nice guy, But this week, he and his party fully embraced the idea that America isn't very nice and Americans aren't very nice at all. They embraced a vicious, cruel, and false vision of our country. And that is what made it, sadly, historic. And that's my take.